All right, welcome to Beta Buddies, Testing with Friends. Let's have a show of hands. Who's tired? I'm going to try to go easy on you all and try to go a bit slow. If you have any questions, please raise your hands at any time. We'll throw you the catch box. Keep it with you because I might answer your question and you go, but, and want to ask a follow-up. And then also it's in the room so it can get to the next person better. So we're two endpoint engineers from Thumbtack. Thumbtack, for those who don't know, is a modern home management platform. We help people care for their home from top to bottom and empower small businesses nationwide to grow. This QR code is going to be on every single slide. Feel free to scan it, or there's the URL, which is just a link to our slides with the speaker notes. And I'll move over. It's also got some example code and fun stuff in there. I don't know, anything fun? I want to say that this is what we're doing. It's not what you have to do. This is, through the talk, we're talking about it in the context of the tools we use. So we're using Monkey and we're using Jamf, but all the concepts in this are MDM agnostic, it's tool agnostic, so whatever you want to use, you can get there with this.
So my name is Rebecca Latimer. Once again, here's my picture with Scully. If you came to our presentation on Wednesday, it's the same one. Yeah, if you're on the Mac Admin Slack, you've seen Scully a lot because I post her constantly. I FaceTimed with her last night because I missed her. I live and work in Virginia, Minnesota, which is a small town up in northern Minnesota. I've been working in IT for about 10 years, and I've been at Thumbtack since about 2022.
And I'm Adam Anklewicz. I'm the lead endpoint engineer at Thumbtack, and you can find me on Slack as A. Anklewicz. I've been working with Macs professionally in sales, selling Macs since '98, or from '98 until in 2006 when I moved over to IT. And I've been at Thumbtack since September. I live and work in a small town called Whitestone, Ontario, on beautiful Whitestone Lake, where I'm in the middle of nowhere, about 3 hours north of Toronto. Now let's have the actual scheduled show of hands, which is who's running a beta program in their organization currently? Ooh, lots of people doing somewhat, some people excited. So of those people, who's doing it for IT only? And who's doing it with beyond IT with some of their employees? Okay, cool. So let's head over here. So prior to this project, it was only IT testing. Specifically, it was us, the endpoint team, our director, and one of the members of the systems team who always has to be running the latest beta on her device. We ran into a problem shortly after I arrived when the latest version of macOS came out, macOS 13, where we had a couple people who updated to macOS 13 and suddenly they weren't able to run the old version of Xcode on their Mac. And our code set wasn't quite ready to be running in the latest version of Xcode, which meant they were running off of a different branch for a couple days before everything could get ready and get them going. It wasn't a huge showstopper, but it was frustrating and something that we want to prevent from happening again. In addition to that, we use a lot of tools at Thumbtack, and I don't use all of them. Rebecca doesn't use all of them. All of IT doesn't use all of them. So we want to be able to get the information from the source, the people who are using it, so that they can tell us when things are not working ahead of time. And not only are we doing this program for macOS, we're also doing it for our third-party software. Now, we're getting betas from Apple, but we're not getting betas from Google, from Palo Alto, et cetera, et cetera. So we are doing slower rollouts of the software, which we're going to go into in a little bit. And in the meantime, let's talk about our goals.
Yeah, so these are the goals that we kind of set for ourselves. We decided that we wanted to have 5% of Mac users. We wanted to make sure that we had all departments. Like Adam was saying, there are a lot of tools that we don't use, and we just wanted to make sure that those would all be available for people. Yeah, and when we say all departments, we really mean all departments using Macs, because as you probably saw in our other presentation, if you went there, we also have a lot of not a lot of Windows users, but we do have Windows users, and we have quite a few Chrome OS users also. So we're not really beta testing with them at all right now. We are really only targeting this to Macs. Yeah, so that was the OKR that we set for ourselves, was 5% of users. And then feedback. We wanted to make sure that we were getting feedback, and that the feedback that our users were giving us were making their way to Apple, basically. So we wanted to make sure that we had feedback and community involvement as one of our goals, to make sure that people were actively involved in the program and not just downloading a beta and then forgetting that it's on their computer. So our first step when we did this was to team up with our comms team. And if you do something like this in your organization, I definitely recommend doing this if you can, because our communications team is awesome, and that's what they do. So they did a really amazing job to write up drafts and making our stuff presentable, so that when it went out to the rest of the company, it looked really professional. It looked like something that they wanted to participate in. We put it through on different media. So we have an email newsletter that goes out, and it went out in that, the invitation to the beta program. We had posts in Slack, and then we also had posts on our company intranet. And surprisingly, that is what drove people to want to join the program the most. We would get an email when someone filled out our Google form that we had. And after the email and after the Slack posts, we had a few. But then we posted on the company intranet. For some reason, people got super excited about it, and we got a ton of people signed up. We had also planned to have rewards to get people involved in this. We ended up not really needing those, because it turned out that people really wanted to be involved in it. But we had planned on doing something like getting a logo for our beta program and putting it on some swag that we sent out. But like I said, we never really wound up doing that.
So for the feedback mechanism, we live and work in Slack. That is how employees communicate at Thumbtack. And so we wanted to make sure it was in the place where everyone is. We created a channel, and we branded this as Beta Thumbs. And so we created a Beta Thumbs channel that was private. And we invited all the users to that channel once they had signed up. And that's where we go to make announcements to them and to troubleshoot issues. So basically what we do is, if someone's reporting an issue, we work with them through that channel. We see in public to that group to get results from maybe other people who are going to see the chat, so that they can go and chime in if they're also having those issues. And then we can work with that employee to craft feedback, to tell a story like Apple was telling us to do last evening, and to get the actual questions and answers in a way that Apple will respond to. So we work with them, and then we can either file on their behalf, or if they feel comfortable, they can file it on their own under the organization.
Yeah, so our original plan, we had a few different iterations of it. Basically, we wanted to use seedutil. We were going to enroll the computers using seedutil. Monkey is what we use for pushing out packages and scripts and everything. So Monkey would be the one handling the work. We'd have scripts in there that the end user could run to enroll themselves in the beta program. We use Jamf as our MDM, so we had planned to use Jamf EAs and smart groups to get the device the right Monkey configuration after they had enrolled in the beta program. And then finally, we would announce to the users how and when to update their computers. We would update first, the rest of the IT department would update next, and then we would get the rest of the group. If you're not familiar with seedutil, and I know this is a little hard to read, but like I said, these slides are on that QR code, and all the code that we reference here is on there too. So seedutil is a utility that, well, it still is, but I mean, it was used in on Macs to enroll in the beta program. So it allowed admins to see the status of what seed people were in. And it also allows you to enroll and unenroll into the right program. So seed util is hidden away in a location that I can never remember. I always have to look it up. It's actually in System, Library, Private Frameworks, Seeding.framework, Resources. That's where you'll find the actual seed util binary. There are a few different usages of it. So you could do seed util and then a seed program. Seed util unenroll, current. There are some other arguments you can use with it, but that's primarily what we're using. And if you don't know about seeds are basically the distribution channel for macOS updates. So when you go into software update and it says that it's looking for updates, it's checking to see which seed you're in. So for seeds that you might have access to, production is the default. That's what everybody gets. Customer seed / Apple seed. That's the Apple seed for IT betas. Developer seed, obviously developers, and then public seed.
So what happened? You all might remember that Apple released macOS 13.4, and seedutil is now dead. Hooray! There was also another program which they had, which was called Beta Access Utility, which was a package that you could download from Appleseed for IT, and you could run that package to enroll people. But both of those things no longer work. So how do we go about doing this? How do we prove that we have access to this? Because that's really the question, is now Apple wants us to prove that we have access to the customer seed. We don't know why, but we assume it's because they want you to read the terms and conditions and sign them for each user who's going to be using it, rather than as an organization. How this is going to impact us as a community, we'll not know, but I have a feeling that there's going to be less testing and fewer people are going to be enrolling in this. And the reason for that is because it's creating barriers to entry. A user has to have a managed Apple ID, which according to Apple is the greatest thing since sliced bread. They have to have the desire to jump through all these hoops, and they have to have a desire to want to deal with a couple bugs because this is very early days of this workflow. When you sign up when you log in with the seedutil, there is a good chance that you're not going to see anything there, or you're going to see the wrong ones. In addition, on the day Sonoma Appleseed beta came out, it didn't show up for a few hours for myself, at least. It's not the end of the world, but it's also kind of frustrating that they have this brand new function and it's not immediate. So we needed a new plan, and we're going to basically do Monkey, but we're also going to do it by hand. So a little combination of the two. So before we go further, why are we using Monkey? We have Jamf. Jamf has their own self-service. They have their own patch management capability. I've been using Monkey since, oh my God, I don't know when. It was before I ever came to a Mac admin, so my first one was 2014. So I'm going to guess it was before then. But it's a program that I'm very familiar with, and when we were testing Jamf's patch management, we just didn't find it met our needs. So we moved over to Monkey, and it's been working fantastic for us. We are going to use it to allow people to, what we're saying, unenroll and enroll into the program, but it's just a way for us to know that they're putting themselves into that program. So we created a no package file, which in Monkey is basically just a way to wrap a script so that it can run and look like it's any other item in your repo. And what it does is it does a check to know whether or not you're already in there. So it's looking for a file, a preferences file called com.thumbtack.beta program, and it's checking to see what program it's in. Is it in production or customer seed? And it's looking for a key in there to tell it that. If the file or the key doesn't exist, then it's going to create it at that point. And then when you click install, what it does is it changes the value from production to customer seed, and it date stamps it. And then finally, it runs a Jamf recon so that Jamf knows that that's the case. And we'll talk about how Jamf knows that in a second. When you click uninstall, it changes it from customer seed to production and changes the date and runs Jamf Recon again. So we wrapped it in a pretty little container that we set as join beta thumbs, and it sets that one setting for them. Then we have a second one, which is called enroll in beta thumbs for Mac OS, which is just another no package script, and all it does is pop up and open up your system preferences and takes you to the beta pane, because Apple hides that from you. So you have to use this terminal command to open that up for a user who hasn't signed in yet. Oh, there we go. And that's you.
Yeah, so since we use Jamf, we're taking advantage of the fact that we have extension attributes and smart groups that we can use. Are people using Jamf in here? Just show of hands, who's using Jamf? Okay, so you're familiar with extension attributes, but I'll kind of explain what they are. So we have an EA in place that it displays information when you're looking at the inventory, basically, of a computer. So it adds a value to the computer's inventory that looks for something that we're giving it. So we put a script into Jamf that checks for the value of a plist that we're putting down to see if the program is in production or customer seed. So the extension attribute, we don't have a screenshot of that one, I guess, but I think that's on the GitHub, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So pretty much that's all it's doing. It's a really, really simple little thing. It's just checking for that value. And once we have that data in Jamf, we can actually use that to create a smart group, and that's what the screenshot is here of, is the scoping that we're using. So this EA script is on GitHub. That was the next line if I just kept reading. This is the smart group that we're creating, is people that are actually in this screenshot. You can't even see it, which seed they're in. So I am not super familiar with Mosel, but I know that Adam has used it.
Yeah, so we want to give you some context that's not vendor specific. And Mosel has the same concept as an extension attribute, but they call it a custom command. So basically you set a custom command and any of the output is then stored on the inventory of the device. And just like in Jamf, you can use the results of that to create a smart group. And you can do that in Mosel as well. And I'm assuming you can do that in any MDM, but I can't guarantee that, but there's some multiple examples.
Yeah, so we are manually enrolling people into Apple Seed. So this screenshot you can see is a picture of our staff role that we have. This is a screenshot from Apple Business Manager. The same thing exists in Apple School Manager. So when you're setting up your roles, you have to make sure that people have access to the things that we want them to have access to. We want our staff that we're putting in Apple Business Manager to have access to participate in Apple Seed for IT. So we're manually creating these accounts in Apple Business Manager so that they have a managed Apple ID. And then after we create that user account, there's a little button, and you know what I'm talking about. If you use Apple Business Manager, that'll send an email to that user so that they can activate their managed Apple ID. Yeah, so this URL changed. It used to be appleseed.apple.com, and it actually just changed to be beta.apple.com/IT. So once they have their managed Apple ID, and a quick note that I forgot on the last slide. So when they have their managed Apple ID, a lot of them have already actually created a personal Apple ID with their work email, we found out. So Apple will append like appleid.com to their email address, and then they can log in with that. So that's just kind of an important distinction if you have people that have multiple Apple IDs, that one is their managed Apple ID. So once they get that link in their email, they can click on that. They'll create their password and log in, and then they can agree to those terms and conditions, which are the reason for all of this headache. Yeah, so after we have them in there, they're going to go into Manage Software Center, which is the monkey version of like self-service. And we have an item in there called Enroll in Beta Thumbs for Mac OS. So once they click on that, they'll get that pop-up in system settings, not system preferences, system settings where they can log in with their managed Apple ID and select what seed they want. And I think that we are going to try to do a live demo.
Okay, I gotta go to this screen before I do that. So I've got a preference. Oh, that didn't do what I wanted. I've got a preference file here, and I'm going to take a quick look using Quick Look, and we can see that the program is production. So I can now go into Manage Software Center, go to Enroll in Beta Thumbs, click Install. Let's look at what's going on. It's basically downloading the script and then running it, and there we go, installing. And if there's any maintainers to Monkey in the room, maybe a function to change the wording of install. That's the right answer. So now we can go in here and we can see, ooh, it's customer seed, hooray! So that's going to then have been sent to Jamf. So now if we log into Jamf, we can see that value in there as well. And now I can just go back here and go to software and click on Enroll in Beta Thumbs for Mac OS. I was having a hard time trying to figure out what that should be called and to differentiate between the two. Maybe it should just be open this. But yeah, that's where we ended up. And let's zoom in, and we can sign in with our Apple ID. Here we go. Now, I have no idea what my password is because I made it something I could type. It was just gibberish. And now it's gibberish that's a bit easier to type. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You'll probably answer this in a minute, but what prevents the user from just clicking cancel if they don't, if they don't know what to do next?
What stage are you talking about, like this stage or like?
Yeah, they see system preferences or system settings pop up. They've forgotten what they did because they went to go get coffee. They come back and they click cancel.
Yeah, so part of that is just going to be communication, honestly. Yeah, we're trying to communicate with our beta users the best we can. That's kind of like why we looped in the communications team because, yeah, of course, you got to be secure.
And in addition to that, we're very clear because not all of our users are tech savvy who want to join this, and we're okay with that. We actually encourage that. So what we've been doing is we've been telling them, if you want to do this and you're not comfortable with any of these steps, let us know and we'll walk you through it. So now we've got the beta updates. Ooh, and we actually have choices. So now I can choose which seed I want. Let's go with Sonoma Public Beta. No, Appleseed Beta. And we're going to hit done. And now in theory, it's going to search for updates.
The network's going to come crashing down.
Hopefully it's not going to run the update.
I have a crashing server. You're good.
Okay.
There we go. So now there's macOS 14 Beta 3 available. Hooray. All right, so let's go back over here.
And that script that did that magic is in the GitHub too. It's just a little one-liner. Yeah, so we started to think of like a disaster plan because we were thinking, what in the world happens if we do this and then a beta comes out and it just completely breaks everything for somebody. So before people even sign up for this, we make sure that they know that there is the potential for data loss, and we make sure that they're backing up by the cloud. And that's another thing that we kind of let people know, that if they don't know what that means or how to do that, to reach out to us. One of the kind of perks of being in this beta program is that you get pretty personalized IT attention. We have our Slack channel just for those people, and we try to help them out anytime that we can. So we also have a weekly reminder in that Slack channel to back up people's data. We also sent USB drives to everybody that's in the group. We told them to just kind of put it in a drawer for right now unless they need it. So in case of emergency, our plan, and we have documentation written up for this, we're going to have the user use MIST to download the full installer and create a USB drive. In case of catastrophic error, where they can't even get into their computer, we have them use a personal machine for that. And if we have users that have said they don't have a personal machine, those are the ones that we're actually instructing to actually put a bootable installer on there and download that macOS full installer in advance when a new version comes out, so that they know that they actually have that set up.
Yeah. Elliot, could you pass the...
You mentioned that you're asking them to do backups. What kind of backup are you doing? Is it a time machine, or are you having them do an rsync
Neither.
to make sure that they have all of their stuff? And because time machine obviously won't get everything. It doesn't get anything that you need for forensics, or if you want to look at that stuff. So
We're not caring about that kind of stuff. We're not even caring about most things. It's back up your important data to Google Drive.
okay.
Because for the most part, we're cool with people wiping their machines and just keeping their Mac in a state where if something goes wrong, they can wipe it. Because I think nowadays Macs are pretty good in that sense that you can wipe a machine and get up and running really quickly.
And so much of what we do is in the cloud, honestly, that people aren't storing that much data locally on their machines, luckily. So, yeah.
I'm just going to look at Rebecca's notes. There was something in there that wasn't there. Though there was something I was going to that I forgot to mention before, but I forgot. All right, never mind. So in addition to that, we have some people who just really want to participate in this program, but they don't want to use it on their production machine. Now, we don't explicitly tell them this until they come to us and talk to us about it. But if someone wants to beta test and not use their production machine, we do have the ability to send them a test machine so that they can run this on a test machine while not potentially damaging their device that they're using as a daily driver. So next is, we're going really fast, not asking enough questions.
We don't have any candy this time to give to people.
No, we ran out. Okay, so scheduling. This is pretty straightforward for the dot releases. Basically, Apple will release a beta such as 13.5, and we will download it on that same day for the IT testers. And then we're going to test it for a couple days. We're going to see if there's any thing blowing up on Appleseed-private in macOS, in Mac admin Slack. If you're not familiar with that, just let us know and we can direct you. So we're keeping an eye on that, making sure that there's nothing that's going to be possibly damaging. And then approximately 2 days later, we're going to suggest that they update. And it's not that we're telling them to update, we're suggesting that they update, leaving it up to them. That 2 days is not set in stone, because if something is wrong, we're going to wait. In addition to that, if 2 days later is Saturday, we're not going to be telling them to do that on a Saturday. So we're loosey-goosey with that. As for major releases, giant caveat that this is all up to the whims of Apple. All these dates and times are the assumption that Apple is going to follow a pattern that they've laid out, that we have no idea if it's going to exist next year. Apple could decide to have WWDC in December next year, for all we know. But assuming WWDC happens in June and they release a beta at that point, then right away IT will download it onto dedicated test hardware and start using it. This being my dedicated test hardware that I downgraded just before I came here so that you could see it going and seeing those betas. Then around July or August, IT will start running it in production. And for me, that's going to probably be Monday. I don't know if you've decided when you want to do that, but...
Yeah, probably pretty soon.
wanted to get this out of the way first.
Yeah.
In September and October, that's when we start asking the beta thumb users to update. September for most of our users, and then our developers, we want to wait until October. We want to get them as close to polished before they're going to be testing it. We still want some leeway so that we can make some changes and contact any vendors if need be. But we don't want them to be doing it for too long. Last year, Apple released macOS 14 in, 13? I can never keep it straight.
14 is the new one. Then.
Apple released the
Yeah.
current version of macOS in late October. And what we would like to do, which we did last year, is on day 0 say, everyone, it's time to update. Go ahead, and hopefully with fewer issues this time.
Yeah. I think you still have the box.
Oh, yeah.
So you mentioned vendors and everything like that. In the past, we ran into where we were using Centrify, and it took them almost a year to the next release before they supported the current release. Have you ran into that with any of your software, like security software? Because they lag sometimes greatly. Tanium was one of them. Surprisingly, Defender was pretty much 0-day
Yeah.
ready, but Tanium wasn't. Patch Manager from Manage Engine wasn't. So what are your plans when that happens with those vendors?
That is when we go and start harassing them. And we try to get as many people as we can to bug them and open tickets with them and fight with them and yell at them. And that's why we want all these people with voices testing it, so that we have more ammo. And we can go after them. We can go to Apple and say that this is an issue. And I don't know if Apple will ever do anything with that, but we can hope that they will go to them and say, hey, we've got X many customers who want this done and want you to promise that it will be ready on day 0. One of our vendors is our EDR software. And if I was on the beta right now, you would see it right here with an X on it saying it doesn't work.
Can't see it on there. But
Oh, yeah, you can't see it. Duh. I just clicked on the icon that you can't see. But what that means is it's annoying, and we've spoken to them, and they won't guarantee that it'll be available for day 0. But we also know from past experience that they just wait till the day it's released and say it's an approved version, and then it suddenly works.
Sophos?
No, Palo
Palo
Alto.
Alto, yeah.
Yeah.
If you use Palo Alto, put a ticket in. They'll close it right away, but at least they know that you're affected by it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really
Did it with
annoying that
Ventura,
they
did it
don't
with
just
Sonoma.
say, hey,
Yeah.
it's going to work on this
Yeah.
date. And then we can just go, okie dokie. But instead, they're like, we're not commenting on this. Go away. So that is macOS. That's the beta program for macOS, but we also do want to test third-party software. And again, as I said, we're not getting betas for them. So how do we do that? And that's basically leveraging Monkey and Auto Package. Leveraging Monkey and Auto Package, except I didn't put Auto Package up there, but it's part of it. Oh, yeah, then it's you.
Yeah, so this is the way that we're staggering the way that updates go out through Monkey.
Wow, you can't see anything.
Yeah,
The
it's
screenshot's in GitHub,
Yeah,
so you can see it nice and big.
Yeah, you can't see anything on there. Wow. Yeah, so we're using smart groups for that. So the first thing we need to do is to create a smart group for our testers. So the EA that we've already seen, we're creating a smart group with that called Phase 0. And that goes out to anybody that has that customer seed extension attribute value. So we make a smart group that's also called Phase 0 then. So Phase 0 is generally going to be anyone that's signed up for the beta program, and then we also put IT in there. So we know that Phase 0 are the people that are willing to test this right off the bat. If something goes wrong, they're smart enough to kind of figure out what's going on and to... Smart isn't a good word. Not saying that our people that aren't in Phase 0 aren't smart, but technically proficient. But yeah, so Phase 0 is the one that's getting everything that comes out like immediately.
Did you say that it also goes to IT? So like the group is, if your username is X, and we just listed all the IT people and did that manually, and then added that customer seat group. So those are the first people to get stuff, but we feel that's not enough for rolling out software just to test to those people. And it doesn't really matter too much if someone's Chrome is delayed by a few days unless there is a security vulnerability that's being patched. So in a normal time, what we do is we have another extension attribute, which you can see the full code on GitHub, and there's a little sample there, which what it's doing is it's trying to figure out what the current quarter and year is, and creating a random number from 1 to 1,000, and it's storing that in a plist. And then that plist is being pulled as an extension attribute up to Jamf. And then what we can do is we can create 4 smart groups, which are utilizing the extension attribute. And we already have phase 0, so let's go into phase 1. People who that random number is 1 to 50. People for phase 2 is 51 to 250. Phase 3 is 251 to 500. Production, in theory, is 501 through 1000, but it's actually just everyone else, in case someone doesn't have it set or anything like that. The reason why we're doing the quarter thing and breaking that up is that if someone's in phase 1 and they're always getting the beta software and didn't volunteer for that, then we want to change it every few months for them. And that was the only reason behind that, to just keep things going and different. And as you can see, like 50, 200, and then 250, and then everyone. It's basically just going small group, bigger group, bigger group, until we get to everyone. And then we can then create different profiles for monkey configs in Jamf and scope them to different groups so that they get a different manifest based on those phases, which are then tied to a different catalog. So we're also using auto package. And with auto package, we are pulling down recipes, and we have, pulling down packages, and we've got our recipe overrides that are setting the catalog that it goes into. So something new comes in, it'll go into phase 0, and then we can go and promote things every few days until it gets up to production. And you can see there with AWS CLI, chose that one because they seem to have a new release every 6 hours. It's slowly rolling up until the version that production gets. One of the cool things we can do with auto package and those recipe overrides is we can go and we can say, this package is really important to us, so we need to go slowly. So we're going to start with phase 0 for our EDR software. But AWS CLI, let's start at phase 2. Let's get this out to about a quarter of the people before it rolls up further. With Chrome, that's a bit more important because that's what everybody uses. So we're going to go and start that at phase 1. We don't feel it just needs to be IT. We can go a bit broader. And then Firefox, we've got like 5 people who use that as their daily driver. So let's just start at phase 3 and see where that goes. People love it. Firefox is great, but it's not the one we tell them to use. And that's it. We got so much time, so let's go to lunch or let's talk.
Yeah.
Anyone have questions?
Yeah, what are other people doing for their
I don't know if
beta
you mentioned this
programs?
already. I know you guys
Yeah.
use Jamf, and people in the room keep me honest here. I think if you have any sort of managed software update configuration profile, you can sign in, like you could sign into system settings with your Apple ID, but you cannot download beta. You can't choose beta. It'll say you're not allowed by your administrator. So just a tip to exclude people from any profile. At least that's what I found in my
So
experience.
profile for which? Oh, for managing just software update.
Sorry, just for managing
So
software.
when you said managing software update, I heard
Yeah.
managed software update.
Sorry,
which is,
yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a good tip. We don't do much or any management of software update.
Not in
So-
Jamf, no.
Not
Yeah.
in Jamf.
We're,
So,
yeah. We're just using Nudge.
We just poke them with Nudge, which
Yeah.
seems to suit our needs
Yeah.
quite well.
Gotcha.
Anyone else? Oh, Elliot.
Or tell us about your beta programs.
Yeah.
I want to know what else people are doing. Yeah.
Ask me next year. I saw a great session this week about GUI scripting, which is a great idea.
He's right behind you. Yeah.
No, the takeaway was that it's a bad idea and it should only be used as a last resort. But it occurs to me that clicking that, like sign in with Apple ID and then switching the beta program from off to the desired one, not just a random one that the user forgot which one they were going to choose, but the one that you, the IT people, want.
Yeah.
Might be useful. Have you tried that, or is it?
No, we haven't, and we were in this, well, I was in that session.
Yeah, I was there too, yeah.
It was great, thank you. It's not something that we really had thought about. My Apple scripting is limited, but now I've learned more, which is awesome. And I want to avoid it because I've been told to avoid it.
This is a terrible idea from what I hear. Yeah.
But it might be an idea for like a little helper app that we can throw into Monkey, or script that we can throw into Monkey. And if someone's not really feeling it and doesn't want to walk through it, we can maybe like have a, do you want to pull up Swift Dialogue and say, here are the instructions, you want to do it yourself or do you want the system to do it for you? Caution, this might be buggy. And then we can throw that in for our users for them to give that a shot. That's a great idea.
I feel like it would be super buggy though, because even from what I've seen, when you're signing in and you go into system settings and you see that list of betas, that's different a lot of times. So
Yes.
sometimes you get the public beta, sometimes you get the developer beta. Like it would be really fragile.
And sometimes it's wrong.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And yesterday
Yeah.
when I logged in, I had all of them. I had developer, I had public, I had Appleseed, and you just saw when I did it, it was just Appleseed and public. So I don't know why. I don't have a developer account. So thanks, Apple.
Yeah.
Can I get like certs now that you've done that? Woo! One thing that since we've got time, I'll throw in that we are using some of this concept with our Windows program, specifically the phased rollouts of things, but it's just a bit more manual because it's a smaller group that we're managing, fewer apps that we're managing. So basically phase 0 is IT, phase 1 is a small portion of people that I manually made sure did not include directors or above. And then the next group, again, avoiding directors and above, then getting some of those in, making sure to avoid the CFO, and then the production version. Anyone want to tell us about, or just, yeah, whatever.
I have all kinds of questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
So a lot of people use Managed Software Center for no package, like self-service style support scripts. Do notice that it is a little bit slower than self-service.
Yep.
Self-service doesn't have to do a full recon in order to show you what you do, and then install the thing, and then do another recon afterwards, like Monkey does.
Yeah.
I wonder if you've considered submitting a pull request to maybe improve that behavior, speed up the Managed Software Center treatment of no package items.
So my coding is terrible, and my Python is pretty much non-existent. But that 30-second conversation of make a pull request seems like that might be something that I have the capability to do. So I'm going to try that. And there was one other thing during Greg's presentation yesterday that I had that little thought that I think I can do that. And so I wrote a note and I created a ticket in Jira for myself so that maybe I will actually do that. And then Greg will look at it and go, what the fuck is he thinking? Or he'll go, that's not bad, okay. He won't go, it's good, but you know.
Yeah.
Anyone want to tell us about their beta program?
Yeah.
All right. That's Mac Admins.
Yeah.